Call to order the June 11th regular meeting of the Great Salt Bay CSB Board. The roll call, Sam Belknap. Here. Betsy Ball.
Here.
Annie Cobb.
Here.
Amy Guptill.
Here.
Matthew Hanley. Here. David Ogier is a known absence. Krista Thorpe.
Here.
Meredith Verney.
Here.
I'm August Avantaggio, and I am here. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll note that there were some password issues logging into YouTube, so we will not be able to live stream this meeting, but it will be recorded and posted
Tonight or
tomorrow morning. Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
I would just ask to move the civil rights team request up, either before or after the pre-K presentation, so that they're not required to stay through other business.
Sure. Should we start it off with that? Move it up right now? All right, we'll move that up to basically now. Right. Any other adjustments? All right, seeing none, we would love that. Do a presentation from the civil rights team.
Okay. Well, I'm going to start us off. I'm Jennifer Wright, and I'm the enrichment specialist here at GSB. I am also the civil rights team leader here. And I wanted to give you a little bit of background on what the civil rights team is, so that everybody's aware of what we do here at school. I've been reading about the history and philosophy of the Civil Rights Team Project, which is a unique product in the state of Maine, a project in the state of Maine. And I'm just going to read what it says on our State of Maine website. The foundation of the Civil Rights Team Project is the Maine Civil Rights Act, which protects people from threats, property damage, and violence when motivated by bias. Early enforcement efforts of the Maine Civil Rights Act revealed that many violations involve young people and happen in our schools. In an effort to reduce the frequency of these behaviors and their impact on young people in our school communities, the Maine Office of the Attorney General created the Civil Rights Team Project. The CRTP launched it as a pilot project in 18 schools in 1996. Initial efforts focused on education about the civil rights law and increasing communication and collaboration between schools and law enforcement. The Civil Rights Team Project has since grown in focus and participation to prevent bias-based behaviors, including violations of Maine Civil Rights Act. We believe it is important to engage our school communities in thinking and talking about issues related to race and skin color, national origin and ancestry, religion, disabilities, gender, including gender identity and expression, and sexual orientation. Youth are central to this process. Real change in our schools must respect and include student voices. Hundreds of Maine schools at all age levels, public and private, rural and urban, in all 16 counties have participated in the Civil Rights Team Project. More than 200 schools are currently participating. So we are lucky to be one of those schools. And so our mission is to create a team of students. We limited it to 7th and 8th graders this year. And most of them are 8th graders. So they have come back to represent, even though they are technically done. But they basically, I facilitate their wishes and what they feel is necessary at our school. And so for a couple of years, they have been asking if we could have a rainbow crosswalk. And we now have a beautiful crosswalk right in front of our building. And they would like to, as a team, create that, turn that crosswalk into a rainbow crosswalk. And so they are going to tell you why they think this is important. introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Lainey Holmes. I graduated Monday, June 9th, 2025. I believe that we should make this crosswalk to, for one, help people that are going into our school and that know our school around the community, know that we accept everyone, that they will not be judged by who they are or who they will become. It could change some other people's perspectives on how they believe everyone is. Like, it could change how you think of someone by just realizing you're doing the wrong thing by seeing people put in effort to make something. It'd be representation of respect for the community because it'd be helping many others that are suffering with the bullying and et cetera in this vicinity. Could prevent bullying in the future. It could make the new generation see that we have made this and tried to explain how the LGBTQ and others that are different from normal people, or how they exert themselves as themselves, like being selves and not basically just being themselves. And it could just prevent, like, in 8 years, if everyone just, like, this is just imaginal, but if everyone were to in the next 8 years just be kinder and more respectable because of the effort we put into the crosswalk, it could prevent less bullying in the future than is what's going on in the school at the moment.
Thank you.
I can hear it. Okay.
Hello, my name is River. I'm going into ninth grade next year, rising freshman at Lincoln Academy. I was a member of the GSB Civil Rights Team since sixth grade, so 2.5 years about. That's when I came to here as well. I think the Rainbow Crosswalk is really important. I think it sends a message to the world that we do accept everyone and that everybody does matter, no matter who you choose to love, who you identify as. Anything regarding LGBTQ, the allies that support it, I think it's also just a wonderful opportunity that it's not something that not every school has. I think it's a great opportunity to make our school unique, and it's, I think I think it'd be a really great asset to have at our school. That's all I mean to say.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm all Hawkins, formerly Milo. I just graduated from GSB, but was a member of the civil rights team this past year. We continue to seek the school board approval to paint the crosswalk that connects the parking lot to the school's main entrance with 559 West Nine North Crosswalk. Allowing it to be built will allow people to see our school as an inclusive place, sending a clear message that GSB is a school where everyone can exist and learn in peace. It would inspire students at the school, send a clear message of inclusion, and allow everyone to see that they're welcome here at GSB. And it might also spark interest in our growing civil rights team, which would be responsible for completing the project. Our school needs to send a message to the community on that River Race and tell people what we stand for. A message, our school is a safe space.
Thank you.
You do have in your packets the letter from the civil rights team and the map of what they proposed, so you can see them. They're probably back further in the packet because the packet's in order of the agenda.
So this is an action item or? Okay.
So just a question, are we talking about the crosswalk on Main Street or the crosswalk here on the property here?
That's cool.
The one when at the main entrance, when you open it up, there's like a speed bump thing that's right at the front.
Where the buses.
There's where the buses go and there's a crosswalk right there. That's the one we're planning.
Directly into the front door.
Can I ask a clarifying question as well? The map presented has more than just a rainbow. So, but multiple of you just said the rainbow crosswalk. So can you give a more definite picture to the board of what the request is, please?
Hold on, I'm gonna let you talk about that first in a second, but there were a lot of ideas about design. And I think that we wanted to get the idea of the rainbow out there, and then if we added any more elements of the design, we could talk about that further. It's a complicated design.
Thank you.
And I'm not sure it's feasible with paint. But we are sort of still talking about the design process, but the rainbow and skin tone base
Mhm.
is what we're looking for.
Is the request today?
Yes.
Thank you for that clarification. That probably helps.
And how many students are on the civil rights team?
Let's see, there's Serena,
It's a fluctuating number.
it's appropriately fluid.
I'd say about.
Eddie,
I feel like they're harder.
I would say 15.
Okay.
Yeah.
12, 13, 15.
On a good day.
Yeah. We sort of didn't want to, like make some super cool design and then come here and then like try to get permission and then not get permission. That would be a lot of wasted effort. So, we just sort of came here with the idea of rainbow crosswalk in mind and sort of used the term rainbow crosswalk to encompass all sorts of different types. Like, there are all sorts of rainbow crosswalks out there. Like, there's ones that include skin tones, there's ones where it's like an actual pride flag as the crosswalk, and there's just the rainbow. So we just used the term rainbow crosswalk to encompass all the possible design ideas, but the depiction there is what we're planning to do. It's just the rainbow, the overall pride flag, the ally flag, and then possibly some like little quotes inspiring like LGBTQIA inclusion quotes in the white spaces.
And the fist.
Yeah.
Mission. So I would also like to say that if our design does turn out to be a bit too complicated with the road code, I'm sure we'd all be willing to redesign it and make a more similar, simple rainbow. That's yeah, I'm sure.
That's just sort of the ideal design.
It's a great presentation and I want to thank you guys for coming. I have a couple like just practical questions. Do we have policies about student groups making permanent, like, is it a proposal for a permanent? And do we have policies about permanent student groups making permanent, changes to?
Not off the top of my head, any current policies on that? I would say in default or in lack of a policy, it's to come to the board for the approval. They came to me first and I felt it was appropriate to bring it here. So they followed the proper channels of that request.
We have student groups that have done similar things like paint the
Yeah.
bathroom stalls and things, right? Isn't that true or am I making that up?
Yes, I've seen that.
Seems to recall that.
Painted the
Yeah.
shed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, do we put this to a motion of further debate?
Yeah, there.
So seeking a motion to approve the civil rights team request for a rainbow crosswalk. Second, thank you, Krista. Thank you, Sam. All right, so we can continue discussion on this.
I just have one safety thing. That is my only concern about the added design, I would say. I love the added design, by the way. I think it's very, very exciting, but the only safety concern I have is I do think the rainbow crosswalk, even with the the skin tones is a fairly well-known symbol of a crosswalk at this point. So I don't think that takes away from it being a crosswalk for safety. I do worry about adding all these extra designs only because I think maybe it might take away from the crosswalk aspect.
Interesting, yeah.
But I would love to do something
Yeah.
because I love the idea and I love the presentation.
That was my thought as well, Amy, and just conversation with Mark around, you know, are there requirements that we have to have in place that have to actually look like a crosswalk? I think I love the rainbow. It's Mark here.
Yeah.
Mark is here.
As far as rules and regulations, I think, we'd have to dig into it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
So you could modify it pending meeting any regulations.
Yeah, as
Yeah,
meets
yes. Thank you.
DOT
Correct.
regulations.
I also saw that there's a proposal to get another June meeting on the books for
Yes.
this year. I mean, we could, even if it's a couple of weeks to get some information and bring that agenda item back to make sure we're making the informed decision and we're approving something that can actually happen.
That seems like a good idea. Any other thoughts?
I had a question whether the team had talked about fundraising for the paint itself, whether you have some budget.
So early this year, we actually did, during one of the school dances, we did make, this is one of our major projects we did. We brought in snacks and drinks and food and popcorn, and we made a decision to sell a ton of products, and we raised a fair amount of money, and that was where we were planning to spend our funds on this rainbow crosswalk. If it's approved.
Well done.
So-
Well done.
I just have one thought, just in the spirit of inclusivity and our school community. I think it'd be nice to put this out to other students. You know, I think it's a great idea, but there's so many other students in, you know, the 6th, 7th, 8th grade who might have thoughts on this too. And I think that if they weren't on board, I think that's again like something for us to know. We need to work harder on inclusivity and just I think education and modeling it. And I think it'd be good to kind of test the waters. But that's just my personal thought. I think the rainbow crosswalk is nice. I think that passes my pre-K and my kids would be like, oh, rainbows and unicorns. I love rainbows, you know, but these flags and these symbols, I'm not sure my 2 younger children definitely wouldn't understand. It's just really not, it's not in their conscious yet. So while we do have elementary school and a middle school here, this isn't just a junior high school. I think personally, I would like to kind of test the waters with other students to see how they feel. But that's just my thought.
Any other debate? So I think the right move would be to table this until the potentially next meeting this month, which hopefully will be June 30th. We can discuss that.
If I may, Mark, does that give you enough time to dig in a little bit? Okay.
What, as far as greater school thoughts on that, how do we feel about how that would go? Or if we want to, I mean, with school being out tomorrow, I don't really have much time.
Has there been discussion? I know a lot of the process hasn't been planned, but on timeline and whether next year, whether it would wait for next year's civil rights team to implement or.
We could discuss.
We would
that.
be, yes.
We would be willing to do that. Yeah.
I think with a, you know, potential rollout for like a new anti-bullying policy and like procedure that goes along with that, it might also kind of pave the way for that kind of talk amongst bigger groups in the school, you know, just, and you guys, well, I mean, maybe you guys come back and present it type of thing, you know, like you did a great job.
I just want to say one thing in response to what you had said. If I'm understanding you correctly, and talking about littles and how they are starting to grasp, let's say, I think the American flag or what flags are. This is a perfect opportunity to teach them about inclusion. And by saying that putting in flags may be too much or too overwhelming, if that's what you're saying, if I can finish, actually, to me, counters everything we're talking about. So I just want to be clear that in this moment, what they're trying to do is create the seeds of inclusion and diversity. And you do that at a very young age.
No, I completely, I respect that. I'm not ready to talk to my little kids about LGBTQ and.
But you don't, that's the thing. So you don't have to talk to them about it. They start to
not
very.
We cannot, yeah, this isn't a debate right now. I would say that we'll table this until June 30th meeting when we have a bit more information on the requirements for kind of a crosswalk in general, and can continue the conversation out of that.
And I think we entertain ideas on how we collect feedback from
Yeah.
wider school population.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yes.
So the purpose of collecting the feedback is what? It is to find out if the majority of students want a rainbow crosswalk, or if there are people who are against the rainbow. What's, or both?
I think, I mean, my thought was that it would be more to make it a community action. So if it was something that everyone was like, yes, then it's something that the school community does as a group. Not, you know, a smaller group within the community says, this is what I want, it gets approved, it becomes more of a community thing. That's.
Unfortunately,
have a
that's
risk.
not, yeah, that's not exactly what we'll.
Yeah, I think that kind of would lay the groundwork for a little risk. I mean, if next year the civil rights community, like team wanted to hang a flag for Pride Month, are we gonna put that to a student vote, and if the students say no, not do it?
I guess
I
like,
mean, those are pretty common.
like as devil's advocate, we want to be welcoming to everybody. And if some kid is getting driven here by their parents who are listening to right-wing radio and they're not feeling welcome, that's another consideration. You know, we want everyone to feel welcome.
I wasn't hearing a vote necessarily so much as like the
Feedback.
community, the presentation, and kind of co-designing with, you know, maybe the school board. If the school board provides permission, I think there's a lot of support here. Then there being some just planned, you know, around like how that process unfolds that includes some engagement, even if it's like, we're gonna do this and here's 3 designs and help us, you know, or putting it out to the broader student body to have input on designs and things.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was somebody that had a hand up.
So this is really.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Public comment.
I'm
Right,
gonna have
that's
to.
just-
Yes.
Presentation.
Usually the board meeting, right, held in public, not a public meeting.
Right.
They can speak during public comment if they said choose, because it is an agenda. item.
Correct. Which has not happened yet.
Yeah,
Right.
got it, right, it's coming.
Right, public comment is coming after pre-K.
So we will now move on to the presentation from pre-K by municipal funding.
I have the presentation here. No, no, can't pull out. One of those buttons. One of those buttons.
Screen sharing?
Screen sharing.
Bottom right.
I can't read that from here. See if I can get it. Thank you, that should, yeah, that's what I need.
Good job.
You want to start, Kristen?
Christopher Bundy, thank you. I'm the pre-K teacher. Thank you for hiring me. Super excited we have this program. And Lindsay had reached out and said, because it's brand new, love to have you come and share what we've been doing, what the program's all about, how it's benefiting the school. And we've been busy. We've been busy little bees this year. I guess it's like the top-down approach, but the pride of my year was today. They had their step-up day, and those kindergarten teachers, the kids had come back in the room, and they'd just been with those kindergarten teachers, and they looked at me and they said, "Oh man, we're all set." And I was like, nailed it. Because they finished their time with those teachers, and they all sat down nicely on the rug, and they looked at the teachers and they said, "Thank you, bye." And the teachers left, and they're like, manners and following directions with these guys is unbelievable. Well done. So hopefully we have a nice little seed moving into our kindergarten program for next year of kiddos that are so ready because of what we've got to do this year. So there they are. This is my pre-K class with a couple of ed techs helping. We've had quite the year. This is a picture from our color days, which the whole school participated in, which is really fun.
I just don't want to spend us, keep going.
So the biggest thing that has made me successful as a teacher this year has been the support staff that I've had. Ann Mann is my full-time classroom assistant, but also Heather Scribner, who is our agriculture teacher, she's our partner teacher for our classroom. And she's really made a point of stepping in for morning meetings when she's available. She also takes them to do agriculture time twice a week. We went to swim lessons. She was there with us when she could be for that. And the other woman I couldn't do this without is Liz Ferraro. She came to us as a special ed tech this year. She's supporting one of the students in my class. But she also supports my whole class when she's a part of our group. They have made it a team where I really feel pretty invincible as a group. Because they are really strong on what they do and they really support me in what I do. So we've really become quite a well-oiled machine this year. It's been great. So our curriculum, we're using the Pre-K for Me curriculum, which is a state mandated curriculum for Pre-K. Well, Pre-K is really about fun and playing. This is about functional play. And so the curriculum is already set up for us to be successful. So by using it with fidelity. So Pre-K for Me is play-based instruction. That doesn't mean that we are a daycare center and the children are only playing. Everything we're doing is with intention. So we're using literature to fuel everything that we're doing. So we do a read aloud, and then that's what gives us the theme or the ideas that we're then putting into our play. It's also where we build on our vocabulary, literacy skills, and the program fully integrates science and social studies into that program. So sort of to piggyback on the civil rights piece, like we're talking in a very age appropriate way about inclusivity, that we are all part of a community. We're learning about community helpers. We spend time learning about our friends, each other's families. We talk about how things can be different, how things can be the same, again, in a really age appropriate, developmentally appropriate way. And all of that comes from these texts that are curated through this program. About what they do. The research-based approach for whole child curriculum meets the requirements of chapter 124 of the public preschool program standards. It's developmentally appropriate for 4-year-old children, adapted from the Boston Public Schools focus on K1 curriculum. Pre-K for Me is intended to support any preschool teacher in enriching, providing a rich play-based intentional curriculum that is aligned with Maine's early learning and development standards, as well as the Head Start early learning outcomes framework. So when implemented with fidelity, it builds on social, emotional, executive functioning, language, literacy, math, and vocabulary skills. In addition, students' conceptual knowledge around a variety of topics is an enhanced, important component for school success. So there's 6 main units to the curriculum. The first one is about family. So it really starts from the kids learning I exist and I matter and I'm part of this classroom. It moves on to I can build friendships and I can be a good friend and what that looks like. And then we get into some deeper stuff with wind and water, which when I looked at that initially, I was like,
We ended up adding swim lessons thanks to PTO support. So they added 6 weeks of swim lessons, which was wonderful. They also learned about physics and other stuff that like you wouldn't necessarily think little pre-K kids, but the stuff these kids come up with and the vocabulary that they're using after doing this and reading these stories and then playing. I had a kid playing with a boat in water and he's like, wow, watch the force of my breath as he blew his, I mean, yes, look at the force of your breath. That's amazing. You're so strong. Another kid said, well, I can make wind if I move my hand. That's how I can make wind move. They're really just sponges. And when you're giving them these tools, they really take off. Then we do shadows and reflections. I think Ms. Peasley was able to come and enjoy shadow dancing with us once. The bottom line, we're always having fun in pre-K. And the last unit is things that grow, not just plants and animals, but also looking at ourselves, reflecting that we were pretty little when we got here and now we are pretty big kids and we can do a lot of big stuff. So we start our day with a morning meeting, responsive classroom style, which is an expectation for the entire school. So again, we're really laying the groundwork. When they're in kindergarten, they already know what to do. The meeting is really deliberate. It follows a plan every day that is exactly the same. So it's very routine based. They know how to do it. They know how to participate in it. A lot of routines, but it's a routine that the rest of the school is also doing. So it really builds on that. So the reader aloud is the biggest piece of instruction, I would say, that I'm doing. Each of the core texts that come with the curriculum, you read them 4 times and you're sort of alternating through books as you go, 2 or 3 books at a time. The first read is a straight read. The second read is all about vocabulary. The third read, they're retelling the story, which is a huge piece for new readers. And the fourth piece, they act out, which is their absolute favorite. Play is often talked about as if it were a relief from serious learning, but for children, play is serious learning. Play is really the work of childhood. One of my favorite books from Fred Rogers. Centers. So here's where we get to sort of our meat and potatoes. It's a solid hour every day dedicated to using these skills that we've been talking about. So on the top left, you'll see kids using puzzles and games, using math manipulatives, counting, easel, writing, blocks, a creation station table, dramatic play, and discovery, which is usually some sort of a science-based activity. One of my favorite parts of the program is something called thinking and feedback. So at the end of that playtime, I'll take an artifact, something that somebody did or a picture of somebody's work, and put it up on a display screen, and then we sit down. The person who we're talking about, so the little guy in the yellow was presenting, he's holding up something that he had worked on that day. And there's a routine set of questions that we go through. First, we look at it, then we listen to the presenter tell us about what they made. Then we tell what we notice about it, and using vocabulary like I see, I noticed that. So they're really starting to build that language. Next, they wonder. So they ask questions. I wonder why this happened. I wonder how you put that together. What were you thinking when you did this? And then it gives them an opportunity to give suggestions. That's the piece that I think is the most critical. I've worked with older grades, and what I've noticed is it's really hard for kids to take feedback. And this is giving that groundwork for being able to take positive feedback from your peers and also how to give positive feedback from your peers. So we're doing a lot of modeling of the language of how to say that friendly, kind, and constructively. And they beg every day, please can you make mine? The other main component that is super important to me is outdoor learning. So this is a time where we are outside and not on the playground. Playground equipment is incredible and it's super important. It's also super important to know how to play without playground equipment. We at GSB have amazing grounds that we're able to use. So we walk in the woods. There's a huge wood space with tables up there. Pat has been amazing getting us things, and Liz getting us things like rakes and wagons. So in the fall, they've raked up leaves, doing purposeful play outside, but also playing together without the aid of typical toys has made them be really creative. They built cool stuff. They are super imaginative. And where I know even my own kids sometimes after 5 minutes outside are like, I'm bored. not these guys. These guys are in it to win it, and they're really working together as a team. So here's our year, sort of a timeline. We've done a lot of field trips, thanks to GSB having really incredible funding for field trips and our buses. We started the year going to the apple orchard. Fire safety came and they were able to do the smoke trailer, just like all the other big kids. We were able to take a trip to the farms and did some cooking. I'm hoping to be able to do that more than just once next year. In December, we did a whole unit on gingerbread men. So we read some gingerbread stories and they went on a gingerbread hunt through the school. That was another incredible time where the big kids in our school really took it on. I gave them gingerbread crumbs and they had to go find the gingerbread. So our kitchen staff agreed to bake the gingerbread. Teachers all through this school helped, Mrs. Allen helped, let me destroy this library with crumbs and papers as though a little gingerbread man had destroyed things. Until it finally led us back to our classroom where gingerbread cookies were waiting for them to decorate. And their faces when they saw those cookies, like, so much fun. Parents came in January, Miss Liz, again, I can't stress enough what a gift this woman is. She has animals she ran her own preschool for a long time. She's brought in chickens for us to explore and look at and hold. It's actually a rooster. I'm a little girl with a pig shirt, and his name is Charles, and our class would like to adopt him as a pet. February were our color days, and then in March is when we started our swim lessons. Yeah, it was 6 weeks with swim instructors from the Wisconsin Rec. In April, we had Liz and one of her colleagues come in and do a puppet show for us, like a real puppet show, which is a dying art. And we went to the Maine Maritime Museum and learned about lobstering. The end of May, we were able to go to the botanical gardens. We also went to Liz's home where she used to run her preschool, and she took us on a walk with our goats. We were reading a book about community stew. We were able to make community stew on her property. She had, a fire for them to use, and it was really incredible. We went to the botanical gardens and they walked their little legs off. We just enjoyed a day at Pebbleford Beach. My life goal is to still be here when they are in 8th grade so I could take that picture again. And then our last non-traditional unit was ice cream and dinosaurs, and we were able to go to Round Top again. Thank you to the PTO for funding that for us.
We also hope you're still here when they're in 8th grade.
And these are just shots for cuteness purposes. They're out in that greenhouse all the time. Heather was able to get a grant, so they all have rain suits. They're like little Oompa when they walk through the school, and it's the cutest stinking thing. But it's also made it so we go outside no matter what. They've got their boots. I don't care. Like, as long as it is warm enough that we are safe, we're going outside. We zip them up. They wear those suits. They're game on for it. I'm game on for it. They had their cougar dance party. They also made this courtyard into a space that we can use. Unfortunately, it's too small for my entire group this year. But we've been able to have some time where we can split the group and have somebody come out and use it. It's also a great alternative to the big playground sometimes. So thank you. It's been an absolute privilege, and I look forward to doing this hopefully for many more years.
Thank you.
It'll be fun to watch these kids go through each grade and see the difference of the production they have.
Board have any questions? Appreciation. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsten. Thank you.
First one is a playoff game, so until
Gotcha.
the run to go.
All right. Well, this brings us to the public comment section of the agenda.
Thank you.
We ask that any public comment is germane to the agenda of the night. Comments are respectful. Are there any public comment?
River signed up, but is that from the presentation, River, or did you want to speak again?
I was gonna speak on a later topic that's
Sure.
come up on bullying.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Stand right up.
What? So, hello again. As I said, I came to GSB in 6th grade, halfway through. I switched school. I came here. 6th grade went pretty well for me. Like I I talked to some people, I knew some people, I didn't have like any really good friends, but I was able to like, I was able to fit in and get to know some people. Um, sixth year ended, I, summer passed and I was back at school again here in seventh grade. Seventh grade went well, same, but, I came up here to talk about the topic of bullying because for me, seventh grade was very, it was rough, to say the least. Uh, there were rumors started around. I felt like I had very little friends at many times, and uh, it was tough. So seventh grade went by. Fortunate at the end of midway through seventh grade, I was able to make some pretty close friends, get to know some people really well. And then summer happened again. Came to eighth grade. It was a bit the same stuff, but it was better. I'd say it was way better. It wasn't it wasn't so bad for me. I had really good friends by this point. The bullying had calmed down a little bit. It wasn't like completely stopped yet though. Um, and I guess I'm just here to say I think that there needs to be some very big changes to how the school handles bullying. So, for me, whenever I went to the office to administration to report a serious case of bullying or harassment, usually what would happen is they would bring in the student, they have a talk, but in my opinion, I think there needs to be an opportunity for both parties to sit down and for an administrator to sit down with them and to work it out themselves and not just have, I guess, like a punishment, just leave it at that and nothing else. They don't get to have a conversation. No, I think there needs to be an opportunity for them to sit down, to discuss what happened, explain what was okay, what went well, what didn't go well, and what needs to go better in the future, what needs to stop. And I think it needs to be more like one-on-one, like personal between the two parties and for them to work it out and not just have a punishment thrown out and say, yeah, it's all good, go back to class and no further action. That's just how I perceived it. I don't know how it was for other people. That is how I perceive this situations that went on. And I think that there should be some change to how the school handles bullying. Um, yeah, that's what I have to say. So
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you, River.
Yeah.
Ben Hopkins.
Hey folks, Ben Popkin from South Bristol here, proud parent of a graduating eighth grader. I just wanted to speak in favor of the new bullying policy, which I hope will address some of the concerns River and other students and parents brought to the board a couple months ago. I just want to say I'm just super impressed when when folks came forward, it seemed like the board really took it seriously and acted swiftly to address the issue, rewriting the policy, which I was done in a collaborative way that I was really happy to be a part of. I think it sets new community definitions that are really understandable that everyone can work from. It's a foundation that besides giving a clear definition of bullying, I think just kind of sets a tone, a new, modern, up-to-date tone of what that was drawn from the community of what will be acceptable, what's not acceptable, and how bullying works and should not work. Because I think, I think one of the issues is, no matter how we have a very, people come from a lot of backgrounds to schools. There's a lot of different variety of standards. And I think no matter kind of how someone might talk or be treated somewhere else at school, we need to have a clear definition of what is acceptable. And I think this new policy is a step in the right direction. It'll be up to the new administration to kind of take the reins and breathe life into it. I'm really looking forward to seeing, what happens there. I just think it's a great example of, community working together to solve a problem, and, I'm just, good job, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ben.
Really appreciate it. There is hard work to do when the rubber hits the road, and just as River was discussing the mechanics of what happens when there's an issue and the person goes here and there. And there's a lot of examples out there. There's, as you know, I research things and I'm sorry for running over time.
Don't have a ton in one, but it would be maybe.
I'll wrap it up real quickly. I found that there was a story at Skadumpa about 15 years ago where they had a bullying issue where kids were being left unsupervised and they were intimidating other kids in the stacks. There was drug use, there was people glaring, and they were sort of at wit's end. They reached to a university professor who was a son of some folks, the Kennedys, who had contributed and worked with the library to get some advice. And what they did was they got the kids together and put together a panel of the parents, the teachers, the librarians, people from the sheriff's office, law enforcement, and said, "You're welcome here. We want you here. But there are certain ways to do, and this is not the way to be. And if you want to be like that, you're not going to be accepted here, and we're going to be paying closer attention to you." So I think that kind of powerful, getting away from like punishment doling out and making people aware that there's community standards beyond just the power dynamic of one administrator or one librarian. I think that, that's looking forward past the edge of this policy. That is maybe something to look forward to. So anyway, long-winded. Thank you again. Looking forward to seeing your cheering on your good works, and happy to help more. Excellent.
Thank you, Ben. Ona Braswell?
Mine's really brief. If you want an example of a rainbow crosswalk, there's one in Brunswick, right at the Bowdoin campus on Main Street. Yeah. Meets DOT requirements, and it's.
Perfect. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And Jessica Hoppy.
Hi.
Hello. Hi.
I have two things. One in regards to the rainbow sidewalk, I think it's a fabulous idea. I love the representation of inclusion. My only fear is that by excluding the people that might have concerns or another ideas, that's a form of exclusion. So I would hope that there would be more talk about having more of the student body included rather than just one club, but your presentation was perfect and on point. And I think most of us are going to grasp it just fine. But again, I think everybody should have something to say about it, not because it's everybody's school. It's not one group's school. In regards to the bullying issue, which is why I started coming here anyway. Thank you for taking it seriously. Thank you for re-looking at it and redoing the policy. I, again, am just offering as a community member and as a parent, any assistance that I can offer. I'm reaching out to the administration at this point to kind of try to be a community hub, PTO, and then there's the school board, and then there's the parents, and then there's the teachers. And my ability with my job, I'm currently working right now. I'm out in the community a lot, and I can help put those pieces together and help with information drawn from the parents and bringing it forward. Not everybody can be here. There's a baseball game going on. Not everybody is public speaking, and God knows I'm not. So I just, again, want to put that out there that I am willing, and even if I'm not the person selected, I think there should be somebody in the community that is like the go-between. Like, can you find the information that they've had that? Where is the information that they brought forward? Some of the ideas of the PTO the other day came out, and I think I could be a great asset to those kind of things, as in reaching out to the community for some of these projects rather than the PTO funding them. Getting a discount from certain stores on certain projects and stuff, because as a business owner, and some of you can relate, there are opportunities for a business to write off for tax purposes for community donations. So, thank you.
All right, and that brings us to the end of the public comment. Thank you to all who commented. We'll move on to action on the minutes. Seeking an action to approve the minutes for the regular meeting on May 26th and the district May 6th and the district budget meeting on May 6th. Chris?
Second.
Thank you, Amy. Were there any issues with the minutes?
I think the community meeting where we voted on the budget should include that Lindsay gave a brief presentation at the beginning.
Okay.
And that,
She set the stage for it. I think that should be there.
Right. Oh, right. That addition, any other changes or errors? All right, we'll do a vote. Do we need to vote on that change?
I don't.
Okay, you will vote on the minutes. Show of hands.
I'll abstain. I wasn't
Same.
there.
All right.
Here.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 2 abstentions and 1 absent. All right, this brings us to the chair's report. Paperwork here. So, before we move forward with any more of tonight's agenda, I would just like to take a moment to recognize and thank Principal Kim Schaff for her service to our school community. The role of principal requires long hours, thoughtful attention to many moving parts, and an ability to navigate a wide range of needs across the school. We appreciate the time and energy she has devoted to that work. Over the course of her tenure, Principal Schaff has shown a deep commitment to the work of supporting the students, staff, and families. We acknowledge the many hours and personal investments she has dedicated to the role. And on behalf of the board, I want to express our appreciation for her contributions and service. We wish her all the best in the next chapter of her career. So, thank you, Ms. Schaff. All right. Second is a request to add a second meeting for this month. The reason again was coordinate with.
Yes, we have the Damerscott and Newcastle votes were last night. Bremen doesn't vote until the 28th, 26th. Whatever the Saturday is, right? Yeah, 28th, thank you. And if we could hold a second meeting on June 30th, we could do the assessment of tax based off that budget being approved and get it to the towns before they're supposed to pay us in July, which would be nice. And you can also give me an authorization to issue an intent to hire over the summer if we have any staff positions we need to hire while we have that gap. So it'd be a nice way to close out our budget season and be able to get documents to the towns approved and signed by all of you actually on time. Our new theme for RC 48, accurate and on time. So it'd be a brief meeting.
Is it something we can do in Zoom? Was that easier or? should we
You
just
have a policy that allows you to do a
Sometimes.
Zoom meeting, so you are allowed to do that.
What? I can
We
make,
just have to
I
allow
can make it
public
work.
participation by Zoom as well.
I cannot attend on the 30th, but there's forum and that works for others.
Yeah, I'm a question.
It's the only day between the end of the
Yeah.
budget agreement meeting and the fiscal year end. It is the fiscal year end.
I am returning from the Northwoods of Maine. At some point, that
Patchy
day.
of things.
May or may not be in reception even for a Zoom
So
meeting.
you have. You can,
yes.
it's a 1, 2,
I think so.
3-ish, 4.
I'm scheduled to work. I could change it.
We need 5.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. As long as flights are okay on the weekend.
Okay.
My flight gets into Portland at 2:30 in
Okay.
theory.
Should we schedule it? And if
I
we
say
need
we
to
can
cancel, we
schedule it
would.
because David,
Yes.
without knowing,
Right, David.
presuming maybe he can, we would still have a live forum and I guess
Yeah.
it's one extra, so.
If it's really short, I could zoom in from work, probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's gonna need the usually wait
Yes.
short, so, all right, so we will add the second meeting for June 30th at 6 P.M. All right, the first regular meeting of RSU 48 board will be Wednesday, August 13th, 2025 at 6 p.m. Meetings are in the library here. And we have in the packet the new kind of wide scope calendar for the year that Lindsay and I worked on. So this doesn't have all the nitty gritty, but it does have kind of the larger themes of what we'll be working on, kind of the cycles of the school budget, hiring and whatnot, including, potential negotiations. We will be doing some negotiations next year. So this has, should hopefully clarify kind of the larger picture schedule for the year.
You do intend to post this on the website for the public to see?
Yeah, exactly. This will be public for everyone to see, hopefully clarify kind of our activities.
Lindsay, will you send out invites, calendar invites for the regular board meetings?
Yes.
Thank you.
And you will, I will send them to your new RSU 48 email addresses. I will have KJ give you welcome emails that tell you how to access that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Because after June 30th, you will not have an AOS 93 email anymore. It will be the same first initial last name at rsu48.org.
And so this calendar does have our regular meetings on the second Wednesday of the month. And these dates should be accurate.
Yeah.
As well. So feel free to dig into that.
It does have our budget workshop scheduled as well already for a longer session.
Yeah.
Just anything we know is on there.
And there are a few, just as a note, there are a few items in there as workshops or miscellaneous items. Those are mostly the MSMA kind of bigger conferences and whatnot, just to have on the radar as we look towards the fall and whatnot. Anything else, Doug? Okay, moving into the committee reports. The Facilities and Transportation Committee, we met last week, I believe it was, to go over our usual things. Mark is working along, getting things wrapped up for the end of the year. The biggest thing that we're kind of looking at is, which we'll discuss a little bit later on the agenda, is middle level playground options. We also talked, Jessica was with us, and we discussed kind of the hope for maybe some reinvigorated community involvement on some work bee type activities, spring and fall cleanup, things like that, and what we can do and what tasks might be appropriate for community involvement. So there was also some bus talked about the disposal of bus, which again will be coming up. So that is all I have to say regarding the Facilities and Transportation meeting. The next meeting I would say will be to be determined, likely in August.
Facilities and Transportation, yeah.
Yeah.
Before the year starts, I think so.
Yeah. Finance Committee.
You did not meet.
I sent out information by email, so I know you received it because you replied. Both of you received it as well. I gave the secondary finance status towards the end of the year so that we know where we're ending. We do have, with the IVF and the tuition increase that was unexpected, Bremen is going to go in the negative a slight amount. Newcastle is going to be fine, and Damascus is going to squeak in the black. But I have a meeting set with Fred Brewer tomorrow to make sure that we have our process outlined properly to address the Bremen issue, which I think, as we look at the audits from the last few years, the funds are there.
There'll be a fund balance transfer to cover that.
Yes, I just want to make sure we do it appropriately for our audit. So meeting with him tomorrow, Bradley and I are meeting with him to go over that, and GSB looks in good shape as well.
What was the scope of it for Bremen?
The total right now, it's about 10,000.
Okay.
Yeah, not, I mean,
Okay.
not 100,000.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And again, it is directly from the IVF unexpected and tuition increase that we did not know about at the state level. It completely in that category, so.
So the next meeting would be in August as well. Likely.
Yeah.
Policy committee.
Yes, we met sometime that I don't remember the date. But it was a great meeting and we, as Ben mentioned earlier in his public comment, we had a collaborative work, on the main model policy. So the current GSB policy, we decided as a community and as a school and as a board that it was just way too vague. And so, so the main model policy was was a much better model to look at. But even within that policy, there were still a lot of things that we didn't like about it and wanted to change. So so Ben and I worked together on taking the main model policy and we tweaked it a lot and changed the language and, cut it way down to make it very clear and using language that we thought was a good fit for the GSB community. We made it a lot more precise so that everyone would know what is considered bullying and unacceptable behavior. And everybody, teachers and students and staff and parents could look at that policy and say, these are the behaviors that are unacceptable. That's what bullying is. Don't do those things. So that's where we're at. And so that's what we did at the last meeting and the last few months. And the policy committee at the last meeting helped us sort of find some typos and move a couple things around here and there. And we brought the finished product to second read today and I believe later on in the meeting are looking for board approval.
Wonderful. All right, strategic planning committee,
We did not.
did not meet. Great.
An item later.
Yes, there was no GSB board workshop. And I will add, there is a foreign language committee that has met twice, I think since our last regular board meeting. And we are on our way. We've got some great ideas. Currently, there's a Spanish language club for third and fourth grade. The idea is to expand the club, to have two meetings with first, I think it will be first through third grade and fourth through sixth grade. And then we will also are looking to try to figure out how next year, hopefully, potentially piloting an in-school option for middle schoolers, 7th and 8th graders. So we've got the ball rolling and have some really good excitement surrounding that. So
I just have a clarifying question. Is that a board subcommittee or is that?
yeah, it's an official ad hoc committee.
An official.
Official, right?
Just add it.
It's in the minutes. And that is all that I have to say on that. So the floor is yours for the superintendent's report.
Okay, I'll try to keep it brief. I will start by introducing Darcy Dakin, who is here, our incoming principal. We thank her for driving down today to be here. She met with Cammie and I, did some employment paperwork today and wanted to be here to meet all of you. So I'm sure you'll take a minute to say hello to her as the meeting wraps up. And we're looking forward very much to having her join our team. I had the pleasure of attending adult ed graduation last night. I give out diplomas to the students, so that is one of my most fun nights of the year. And we had 7 students graduate last night, which was a really great number. And it is definitely one of the best ceremonies you can go to. It is so personal and so celebratory of everything they've accomplished. So That was my great adult ed news. Also, David Watts has secured grant funding to upgrade the student workstations for students that are processing their HiSET. He's getting new computers, new monitors, new webcams, new mouses, new stands, new docking stations, 5 new Chromebooks along with the 3 Dells that he's getting. So that's a really exciting development for adult ed to modernize all their equipment and allow students to have reliable technology. Unfortunately, David is also leaving adult ed. So he has been offered a dream job that he can work from home and also do some advocacy in Augusta. And due to the drive and cold weather and nighttime type things, he is going to take that position. He is staying with us through the end of the summer. So we have some time to work on that. The Adult Ed Advisory Board is meeting Monday to plan our next steps. And we are also connecting with some of our neighbors on their part-time positions and if we want to look at any combinations and collaborations there. So adult ed is be moving forward with that direction. I do want to announce for the public that there is a public comment period, an open period for the use of Title I funds and also for the information in our comprehensive needs assessment. That public comment period is open until June 30th. If you have thoughts on how we should spend that money or questions about it, then you can email me or the school office, which the email comes to me as well, or call and be happy to take that comment and into our consideration as we move forward with our grant funding applications. I'm also excited to announce that we are applying for a grant for pre-K partnership with Coastal Kids. One of the pieces that we are looking at is, as you see, our program is phenomenal. So is theirs. We're not looking to detract from each other's programs. We want to work together and make sure that there are lots of community spots for our kids. So we're looking at a partnership where we would receive some grant funding. Students would enroll through us, but certain students would be placed at Coastal Kids. They would follow our requirements, such as using the same curriculum. We would provide meals and transportation like we do for students here. And some of our funding that comes through the EDU 79 would then go to them to help fund those aspects. So it would be a collaboration that allows us to open up more spots without having to do an entire second classroom at once, without us needing more space. That helps them because most of their business is the 3-4-year-olds as well. And so we're not looking to detract. We're looking to work together and build that. So we've submitted that application. Kelly Stokes and Jen Karen, the director of Coastal Kids, and myself wrote the application together and are waiting to hear back on that. So we're very excited to continue our pre-K expansion. RSU 48 development is going great. Our new website is slated to go up on Friday to be live. We are ready in almost every state system. I'm going back and forth between AOS 93 and RSU 48. I'm looking forward to when one of them disappears and I can just live in one world. We've been working heavily with MSMA to make sure all of our benefits, our trusts are up and running and active, and all the legal paperwork is set. And we, Bradley and I are at a point where we're so far along in the process that we are actually sitting down and going through our employees one by one to make sure every single person's job category, designation, pay, step, salary, deductions, pay election choices is correct for next year. So we are in really good shape right now for starting this. And all of our employees received their contracts and reasonable assurances and salary notifications for next year electronically. It was swift. It was great. I uploaded the templates. I mail merged everything. They got it. They signed it. It's in electronic files. No chasing down people. And there have been 2 errors and they were mine typing. So we've been really, really happy with our modernization as we move into RSU 48. Yes, and just for professional development, Betsy and I attended a webinar from Drummond Woodsum on policies, development and management, so that we both had up-to-date information on accurate pieces there. And I am going to the Commissioners Conference for Superintendents in June, later in June in Bar Harbor, and looking forward to spending 2 days there with my colleagues and seeing what's new so that we can bring it back for RSU 48.
Thanks. Well, thank you, Lindsay, and thank you for all your hard work getting us, launching us into the next phase with great success. The principal's report is in your packet, I think, for time's sake, you can peruse it. If there's any questions, All right, moving on to unfinished business, the job descriptions. Seeking an action to approve RSU 48 job descriptions for ed techs, custodian, bus driver, administrative assistants, and food service worker. So moved. Second, Sam. Matthew.
If I can just speak to this, I have been working hard to, as you know, move through the job descriptions. This includes all of the support staff categories. Natalie, thank you to Natalie and Janet, who reviewed them with me, gave suggestions, took them out to staff members that are in these positions and asked them for feedback as well. And we're here with some nice current ones for you to batch approve.
Any questions about those descriptions? Anything? Any eyebrows? This is very fun to me. All right, we will do a vote, a show of hands, all in favor? Is unanimous, one absence. All right. This brings us to the board self-evaluation reviews. Steve, we're waiting patiently. So as you know, we had these first, to my memory.
Congratulations on your pending retirement. Well deserved. Like next week, right?
I'm not sure.
Oh.
Right, one last hurrah. So we took the self-evaluation and Steve Bailey from MSMA has kindly offered to kind of do a debrief for us. As this is kind of the first one for, I think, any of us, I thought it'd be helpful to have someone lead the conversation and help us kind of work through this. So I will, the word is yours.
Do you mind if I brought the chair?
No, please
closer?
do.
Okay. Do I see that you have what I had prepared already for you? Okay, that's good. Okay. Let me give you two other things first before we start. You can pass those around, Kristen. And here's one other document as well. So yes, Steve Bailey, I'm the Executive Director of Municipal Boards Association as well as the Municipal Management Association. There are some of you, I have to say that it's very comfortable to be back here this evening. It was 8 years ago, June, I think the last time I was here, sitting in Lindsay's chair at the time. But it's been really nice to have been working with you, and many of you probably have received things from me, either through MSBA or through MSMA in terms of, and hopefully everybody's getting their email directly from us. It'll be important that we get those addresses changed, to RSU 48, so we were making sure. Matter of fact, there is an email going out, I think, from Angie probably tomorrow. That will make sure.
Usually the elections,
Yes,
we get an
that's
update right after.
We do all of the updates. So August really asked me to come and just do a little bit of a debrief, lead you through a conversation. And that's really what I hope to be able to do tonight, is just kind of lead you through I'm not going to do much talking, other than to be asking questions and try to engage you in conversation. But the first thing I want to do is, I was on your website earlier, and it didn't appear as if you had policy BBAB, although you have jumped ahead and really identified that it's a really good thing for you to be doing a board self-evaluation right off the bat. So I'm really proud of you in terms of thinking about, can you get a foundational level of how you're functioning? And then think about, okay, where can you go as a board to be able to think, working together, a nine-member board to be able to, from the 3 towns, to be able to, work together to be able to support the students, support the schools. So that's really, really neat. I want you to know the questions that you answered on the survey that you completed did come from the school board self-evaluation, the model policy sample policy that MSMA has that I did pass out. And that, on the second page of that, has criteria A through M that identify what are the roles and responsibilities of board members. What is it that you do from a policy point of view that board should be thinking about in terms of your behavior, your actions, and your functions as a board. And then the next page beyond that is the 1 through 29 questions that were answered. And to make sense of the document you have in front of you with all the graphs on them, you can see that there are coded letters on the right-hand side of that form that has the questions on them. And if you look at the bottom of the second page of that long form, you'll see that the AP/A means academic performance and accountability. L is for leadership, BR is board responsibilities, and those types of things. So when you take a look at your graphs that you have in front of you, you'll see those have been separated by each of the areas on the self-evaluation. So the very first page, as you can see, is leadership, leadership data. Second page being board effectiveness data, and so forth, throughout each of the areas of the self-evaluation. So that all makes sense. And also help, would lead later on, if you were to adopt a policy, that you would have, policy in combination with a self-evaluation tool to be able to use in an ongoing manner, if that continues to make sense. So the idea was to be able to craft the questions and be able to have you just respond to each other in a conversation about what you think about this first round of a self-evaluation you've done as a board. And you're probably one of about maybe 25 or 30 that I know of that is utilizing this type of a process. And again, it's a situation, a kind of a process where you're looking at each other as the evaluation as the board and not as individual people, within the board. So it's how is the board functioning? And that really it wants to be our conversation tonight. So there really is no intent or opportunity to point fingers. It's really how are we growing as a group? What are our goals want to be as a group? Where do we think we need to be going? So that first question that I have that I passed around for you, as you look through each school board area of responsibility, what general observations do you have? And we'll look through each of the 6 areas. So maybe if you haven't had the chance already, if you could take a look through each of the 6 areas, do a little bit of a study, maybe 5 minutes or less, to be able to think about, are there some things you want to talk about? Are there some things you want to point out with questions?
I would say the most lowest scoring area, the academic performance and accountability regarding structure and process for performing effective oversight of curriculum instruction and assessment results.
Yeah, that was my reflection as well. I think to me, that tracks with where a lot of our focus has been as a board, but also represents an opportunity for deepening engagement as we step into the new RSU.
And I would say not only those issues, but the climate issues. I know there've been lots of climate surveys done over the years, and I've never seen them as a board member. I think it's important that we see those things.
Yeah, right. Access to the data.
It's a subgroup of that maybe.
Other thoughts beyond number 2 on page 3, the academic performance and accountability.
I think on page 1, the question to the board establishes annual goals and objectives. That one just stands out to me as sort of sometimes the reactive nature versus the proactive nature. And I think we're making some steps as a whole school community to be more proactive with things like the strategic plan and things like that. But I think it isn't, that I think this shows that we are identifying we need to work on being more proactive rather than putting the Band-Aids on the things that are broken. Let's like prevent the broken from happening. Instead.
Preventative care?
Yeah, preventative care.
Yeah,
God.
I'd circle that one as well, Amy. I think, and I had also made note of the comprehensive orientation and boardsmanship boardspersonship development, so, I think that both of those to me are, again, opportunities for us to bolster our skill set and lean in.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly with that, especially, you know, the annual goals and objectives. I think there's room for really concretely setting some tasks and hopes for the coming year. Hoping to spur that along with that calendar so that we have kind of a better idea of how things are moving through the year. And also with a kind of, you know, just board education and whatnot, I do think that, you know, for new members, there isn't really an orientation. I think there could be some sort of a improvement for that or implementation of orientation, and then in generally, you know, encouraging us all to take advantage of the MSMA meetings and workshops that they host in the fall. I've done a few of them. I definitely know that there's a few areas that I would like to work on in regards to kind of input forward and whatnot. So I would definitely agree that that is an area where we could definitely all look towards. It's hard time commitments, but.
I think the other one that I started when I looked through it earlier was under the community engagement about engaging parents, businesses, and communities. I do think that that's another theme that we hear.
Absolutely. I circled both of those mostly because I had a challenging time answering those questions because I'm like, what is the board's role in doing that? Like the board isn't necessarily the public facing figure responsible for communication. But I think it does raise the question, how do we work in conjunction with the superintendent and the administration to do that? And maybe that's a mischaracterization of the role that I see the board playing, but
From my perspective, I think that's a very astute kind of observation because boards do have a difficult time necessarily interacting, you know, as a board with the public. Because the only one time you really have that opportunity is here at a board meeting with public comment, and public comment is set up so that it's in many ways one way and not, you know, two ways in terms of being interactive. But your suggestion about how to do that, you know, through the superintendent, you know, through the building administrators to be able to identify how is it and what is it that we want to be communicating, you know, with our publics. And are there times where you want to seek information through some forums or some other workshops that you would schedule to be able to seek, you know, that kind of input, you know, from the community? So, you know, those are all different, you know, ways of being able to think about that.
I think to that last point, Steve, the work of the strategic planning committee and engaging the wider community there is a good model of how that has been successful in the past.
If I could, a couple that I noted that I just kind of circled. What was on the first page, and it goes along with number 2, but it's number 3. The board uses data and reports to evaluate progress toward goals and identify areas of concern. Now, obviously, you want to have goals and objectives first to be able to identify, you know, what's the data you need to be able to report to that. But there's another one also that does speak to the use of data, and I think that was on page.
Board seeks to provide sufficient information to make informed decisions.
Oh, it's under community engagement advocacy data. The board makes use of data from the district to provide information to students, parents, and public. You know, so what does that data look like? How is it collected? You know, how is it organized to be shared with folks? You know, those are kinds of things to be able to identify, you know, what's the state of the school? What's the state of the district? How can that be? That's another form of communication and engagement, you know, with the community as well.
Yeah, I think to Matthew's point, that is something that we have struggled with in the past in not having access to. And I think more intentionality on being thoughtful about what we can be requesting to help us make decisions. Go a long way there.
So question 3, and I'm kind of hearing it as you speak. And I also noted that as you started this, I mean, you went right for the yellows, you went right for the greens. You went, but I think it's important to note that of the blues and the reds that you have in terms of the responses from folks, most everybody answered a question, so there were 10 responses, all the way around. There were a couple of questions where only nine people answered, but
Only 9 of us, so we're kind of wondering where the 10th person came from.
I think someone, when I was kind of chasing the last few people, we got to 9, and then there was one person who thought that maybe they hadn't actually done it, and I think they did it again.
So maybe
When I was tracking it, and the folks that said they hadn't done it, and then they did it, we got to 9, and then it was good.
I thought Lindsay might have done it, so.
I don't believe it.
I didn't have the name.
That you had to
participate.
He chased me down, but
He's sitting there for the second time.
But
It's okay.
maybe one of us started it once, didn't finish it one.
It could have,
It's only
there's one
some
with,
of them.
yeah, there's one with 9 responses, so.
So my point was that as an early board, I mean, an early developing board, I mean, you're already functioning at a high level, at least how you think you're performing, with one another. And so the question 3 really was, does your view of reality in terms of how you scored on the survey match with the overall perception of others? And with the exception of a few questions, it really seemed like it did. I mean, there was some unanimity, in terms of some of the answers, at least on a 4 or 5 or 2 or 3 basis.
Yeah.
Does that match your own perceptions?
I was very heartened to see the 100% always strongly agree on the board superintendent relationships. Because while I get that sense in how we interact, you're never sure until you're like, okay, everyone else shares that. It's
So
nice to see.
number 4 really kind of try to get that a little deeper, though. If there were areas where you didn't think that it was consistent with others, can you speak to what you think is important for the board to function more efficiently or effectively? Or to follow that up, what question or what area, what would be your suggestion or recommendation for that? We've talked about some of those already, but to try to dig a little bit deeper to be able to help identify, for that last question, are there goals or areas where you want to work on? What would it be that you'd identify that is important for you as a board right now?
I think that question on under community engagement, number 4, the board engages parents, business, and community at large in support of the schools, is just worth us asking a question about what does that, and we've already brought that up. What does that look like, and what do we mean in support of the schools? Because I think where the often and agree feels very accurate, and always, the blues and reds still mostly dominate, but I think it's in terms of budget or kind of information at these meetings. So I guess it would be exploring different areas and trying to tease out like the curriculum, the information that we could be engaging the community on, apart from budget. Feels personally like we do really well with budget, and that's very much our role. So I think as a board, kind of asking those questions of, well, what else is there? And having that as a conversation with the administrators that we could do in support of the school.
Others on that area?
I don't have on that area. I just think to be more efficient, I think generally this board functions fairly efficiently, which I think is pretty evident by the scores being, well, first of all, I was heartened to see that there were scores that were low. Like, I hate to look at a survey and it's like, ooh, everything's perfect. Great, because that doesn't show a growth mindset in any sort of way, right? That doesn't show that we're able to look at things that we're not doing well at, and that we are motivated to fix those. So I was heartened to see that there were some, but I was heartened to see they were pretty consistent. I will just say, I think when we are having an ineffective moment, I think it is going back to sort of the education, and really just we get a lot of newer board members. We don't have a large audience often. We don't have a lot of people on boards. So that education piece, helps us to function more efficiently when it comes to just business matters.
Yeah.
Being on board can be complicated. There's a lot of rules.
Yeah.
I always like to learn the rules before I do the thing wrong. Learning the rules by doing the thing wrong is never the best way to learn. No? So, again, back to the
Yeah,
proactive prevention.
there we go.
Approach.
If I may, one thing that stood out for me back to the question number 2 on page 5 around structure and process for performing effective oversight of curriculum, blah, 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 blah. To me, I'm really curious in what effective oversight looks like, where we see good examples of that in other boards as a way to help us model. Because I don't know what that means, what effective oversight means, what is too much oversight, what is too much involvement, what is the appropriate level of oversight and engagement? Yeah, I mean, really, what is micromanaging the administration and the teachers versus keeping tabs on things to allow us to make some of these bigger strategic decisions?
Yeah, data to be able to ask those questions.
Yeah.
So that's a really good question to explore. It's a good question to be able to have a conversation both together with your superintendent as well as your principals, as well as to be thinking about what goes back to a data question in terms of what is the curriculum and the results of the curriculum being used, showing you with regard to reports out from teachers and from principals, looking at how is the school performing. And then also, as you consider new curriculum, identifying, what your role is going to be in the adoption of new curriculum that might be introduced, for use, within the school. Because you don't want to be, you have one employee and that's the superintendent. And she has the responsibility of supervising, the principal administrative staff as well as other workers, within the district. So you don't want to get in a situation of micromanaging, yet at the same time, one of the responsibilities within the duties of school board members within the statute is overview of curriculum. And so how do you do that, without being in the classrooms? How do you do that without, seeing every textbook? I mean, you don't want to be doing that.
And to expand upon that point just a little bit, Steve, and back to your point, Amy, about seeing like some not positive responses, I think setting the expectation that we don't want to see just the good news in the principal's report and things like that. We want to be able to dig in and have those conversations. Like, where is that room for improvement? We want that growth mindset to be part of the entire school culture. So that's a real opportunity.
I'm glad you mentioned we have one employee. Because that raises a question on page 9 for me, that a third of the board doesn't necessarily believe that we evaluate our one employee on defined performance criteria. So I think there's an opportunity for us. And maybe that's because we have a new.
I think,
relationship. I moved to the
talked about,
AOS.
right. We talked about it last year, and then because it had shifted, and then Lindsay this is only the first year of this. I believe it's in the calendar of an official evaluation.
Check-ins, I think 3 times. It was beginning, middle. Beginning, middle, end, but it's not by the school year because you want to have it wrapped up by December so you can decide on my next contract. So
I can see why it might be seen that we, sometimes, or it's not particularly clear, but I think absolutely
it's not totally visible either.
Right, I think it's.
Well, and I would say that like for this year, like I was answering for this past year. And
Right.
and we deferred
Yeah.
very intentionally because we want to give our new superintendent a chance to settle into her new role. So, just again, it's not a criticism, just like an honest answer. I think for me, like just to say where I was at the moment.
And the goals I had were more than 3-month long.
Yes, I don't have any doubt that we're going to establish that going forward, honestly. But
I assume you'd have ongoing conversations about that anyway. Assumption.
Yes.
Yes.
And if you don't have it, there are, matter of fact, you probably had it from before, Lindsay, but there were from MSSA and MSBA, there's the guidebook that was developed as well as some other samples that can be used to be able to identify and create criteria that you certainly want to be looking at. I heard just now, which I was glad to hear, kind of 3 to 4 month check-ins. And I strongly encourage those, not from an evaluative point of view, but from a supervisory point of view in terms of how are things going. So that you end up with a superintendent being able to ask you, so how are things going? And this is an executive session. This is not, an open session. And for the board also to ask, because you want to be there supportive of your superintendent, because you want her to stay around a long time. The question needs to be, so how are things going? What can we do as a board to be able to support you in this position? And I think the first thing we did to support that was to create one district.
Yes.
And that's why we deferred the evaluation, because we didn't want to evaluate her on serving 5 schools.
Yeah.
We have established that's an impossible job, right?
Yeah.
You could do that. Yeah.
You did well on that.
She did, but like.
As one who evaluated her.
Yeah.
Much nicer now.
So that was question 4, kind of, just real quickly here, just so that you can, and what I'll do is I'll take my notes, but I see you're taking some notes as well. Anything that I've taken, I'll write back to August and Lindsay in terms of, highlights or thoughts. But that number 5, are there goals the board wants to set to work toward during this next year? And I know that one of them is a strategic plan. And once you have that, this kind of conversation, and if you do this kind of thing annually, it also should tie together with the strategic plan in terms of, what is the strategic plan for the district, but how does the work of the board, how do you work to be able to help the district accomplish the goals that you set forth in the strategic plan? You don't want to be at odds with that. You want to be, kind of be both the foundation for it as well as be able to help, provide the support for it behind it. So are there goals you can think of as we've had this, 15-minute conversation that you want to begin focusing on?
I think we can just take the one that had the most mixed or room for growth and make a goal to establish and implement structure and process for performing effective oversight of curriculum, instruction, and assessment results. So just making that a goal for next year.
And then, of course, you want to flesh that out in terms of as a goal. What does that look like? Yeah. What does that mean? What would we see if we were able to have that as a goal? And what will be the action steps, for that? Are there others? And again, I would say no more than 3 as a board, not to be mired in, if you have 5 or 6 or 10, you don't have any.
I think it connects to the acknowledgement that we had transitioning into the district of establishing those metrics of evaluating the superintendent. I think that's one that we've already kind of committed to. And I'm a big fan of having at least one goal you've already made progress on and have the shared commitment on, so.
I'm wondering what a community engagement related goal would look like as the first year of this RSU district.
Yeah, I've been thinking about how the board can be a little more public facing to a degree. I'm not sure, we tend to operate kind of here because we have to.
You can't have the conversation in the first
Yeah,
place.
exactly. But, working on at least kind of having more visibility of our meetings. I know we're working on it with the website of getting kind of our page much more easily accessible and visible. So I'm not sure how it works per goal, but I do know that often, kind of the big mystery of what the board does is a common thing. And I'm not sure, the best way to do it, but an idea is to throw out there.
I agree with that. I think the board would just appear more approachable. Not that I'm not approachable, we are, but just on the website, which like the new website I thought was really great. And I think that it can be, I just think we could take that and run with it. But there's also something here that I thought was really, like a nice, concise piece about, what the board does. Just
Does and doesn't do.
right, what it does, it doesn't do, like something doesn't breathe, and I think here it kind of, the areas the board considered, okay, so self-evaluation, but it also relates directly to what we do. And it would be nice to have some of what we don't do. Like, for example, during public comment, it's sometimes, I think, kind of come across really cold if we can't respond. We're just like, thank you for your feedback, or thank you for your voicing your opinion. But what we want to do is like engage in discussion, but we can't, and it looks, I think it'd be nice if it was out there, like, we can't, we might want to,
Yeah.
just kind of.
Public
Here,
education.
yeah,
Yeah, for sure, we had the mail, is that going back on our website, our new website?
Yes,
There.
it's gonna go on the website and it's next to the agendas and sign-in sheet when you walk in as well.
Updated to be just us.
Yes.
Oh, that's right, you mentioned once maybe having that in
On.
the page, yeah.
and- But to follow up, I mean, having a document is one thing, whether people engage with it or not is a separate
Well,
question. But
that's-
to Meredith, to your point, I think there's opportunities for us as a board in the process of these meetings to make mention of that. Just as we go into this, like, just a reminder, this isn't, like, unfortunately, this is not a discussion, and like, those opportunities are in our workshops or in our subcommittee work, so just setting that expectation, so it does come across as less kind of cold.
Yeah, even if we don't need to be, and I think I had mentioned our August maybe about like in the welcome packet back to school, like a little blurb from the board, like, welcome, you're welcome to all our meetings and our subcommittee meetings, and like, we want to hear from you, kind of.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
The communications, like maybe a specific goal for next year could just be around, sounds like the webpage is already such a new thing. And so really kind of having school board input on a public facing webpage and setting a goal for like 3 full board letters to the community over the year, some number, but thinking about the welcome at the beginning of the year and just remembering when we wrote a letter regarding incidents and back to Amy's point on the reactive versus proactive. So we wrote a letter and we all signed it and that went into the paper. And that was just a good, like, reaching out to the community, but doing it in a more proactive way rather than reactively.
The question I have, and it went back to one of the ones I think I asked earlier, but I think it's one that will serve you well over time, and also will include school staff, administrators, and that is what data is it you're looking for? How will it be collected? And what will it be used for? How can the board use that to be able to help make decisions in terms of where you want to go and what you want to do? So there is a question there, I think, about data. What data do you want to collect? For what purpose, and how would you hope to use it? And you've done it well with financial data already. You did it in the process of creating your district. What does that look like in terms of curriculum? What does it look like in terms of culture, the climate? What does it look like in terms of other aspects of school organizational structure? Yeah. So whether that's picked up or not as one of your 3, that leaves folks to decide, but I would urge that to be thought about anyway. Anything else I can help with in terms of the conversation, or you think you're pretty good for tonight?
I think that's.
Did this serve the purpose you hope?
Yeah, I think it has. I think it started the thought process, and kind of gotten us tuned into a little more forward-looking mentality to the next few meetings and what we can do for the following year. So
the second piece I'm pleased about is not only did you take the survey, but you're also talking about what you're going to be doing with the survey results. So add that to your blue circles.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Great to have been with you. Thank you. Well, thank you all for that.
Yes. We do have on the calendar August meetings to review district goals. That could be changed to set.
I think we should have the meeting in August. We can kind of solidify and make some actual goals.
Great.
All right. Powering through on to new business. The 2025-26 staff nominations. seeking an action to approve a 2-year contract for Shannon Siegel, school psychologist, as recommended by the superintendent. So moved. And
I was seeing in Bristol. Thank you.
just,
We're very pleased to have Shannon wanting to join us. She has been the school psychologist for AOS 93, now coaching, didn't recruit, but she loved the school and the opportunity to be more effective in a smaller size environment as well. And I will say, like with Kelly Stokes, the staff who has been working with her for the last few years were enthusiastic about her staying, which is a huge compliment to anybody. So we're very excited to welcome her to our group as well.
great. Any questions? All right, I think we can vote to that. Do Kelly?
Yes,
Is that what
you can,
do?
I can just pictures out of the.
All right. Do a show of hands, all in favor? That is 7. All right. Mark, so this brings us to the discussion on middle level playground options. So as I mentioned in the facilities and transportation committee report, there is a lack of kind of engaging options at the playground for middle school level students. So we are trying to kind of come up with options. And Mark, if you want to.
Do you want me to talk about what the kids?
Sure.
You've
Yeah,
got
I
stuff
think
too.
Mark, yeah, I asked him to take some pictures of the.
Fabulous. Yeah, that's good.
Playground, just so we can
I should have.
visualize, no, probably. And you?
Nice night, you could have a meeting outside on the playground.
Thank you, sir.
So what I did is I put together just a few pictures of some of the major things that we need to do moving forward. Some of them we need to press on sooner rather than later. We did have years ago a good community group that was always tackling the playground. But over time, because of it being wood, well, we need some attention right now. I know that we budgeted $20,000 for playground / looking for some handicap accessibility. But I do think that we're gonna have to use money to do some of these upgrades right now. And then like to have a group of us so that we can look down the road where we headed. You know, as August mentioned in our meetings, the junior high doesn't have anything to do. I mean, they just hang out. We talked about a walking path, and you'll see on the last couple of pictures there, I just highlighted an area, that possibility we could put in like a walking path for them, or just something to maybe get started. I do have some pictures and stuff for some, if you wanted some workout areas for the older kids. There's some things, there's a picture of the playground in there that is less maintenance free for like a pre-K. But I do think there should be a small group of people that put something together that where we headed long term. And we know that we got a little money right now to get us safe, so everything's safe. I talked about, brought in a company looking at the wood chips. They put in 4 or 5 inches everywhere on the playground, they blow them right in. That's like $12,000. So when we can continue to do what we're doing now by buying our chips to new heights, what they do is they set up, give us clean chips, let them know ahead of time. And then we use our tracker to put them in place, and we kind of work together. But combination of that with the work being with the community helps save a lot of money. The other thing is we want to put a pole up so that we can have a security camera with a little better view of what's going on there. If somebody got hurt on the weekends or something, we really need to know what took place there, or what's going on during the day. So that helps us there. So we have some wood chips there. we need to put a pole in first. The other one is you'll see on the netting. We've kind of tied that together over time. We go up at a 45-degree up. It goes off the tower, up and through to the slide area. Well, that has been a challenge the whole time. I do have a couple pictures that you can. Yeah. Just look at, I do have some concerns about the way some of that's being.
It's just a picture of a kid's face through the net, like they're putting it through like her pencil.
But it's just, that rope and stuff is getting old, let's go. So we need.
Yeah.
It's went on. Good picture.
So.
Take it home.
Is it your dog?
Yeah.
Might have been a couple of children.
That's great.
If you're gonna use kids in a photo. it's-
Yeah, no, perfect.
And well, let me tell you. Those, I was printing up some of this other stuff and that just happened to come across on the printer. And I said, oh, perfect timing. So I went out and looked at it, you know, it's just, we constantly gotta look at that for safety wise. And that's an example of like, you really gotta keep things tight so we don't get into those situations. And that, the rope is weathered so that it's easy for them to fall down through. I think what I would recommend in that situation is take that rope down. We've had to deal with it a couple times. And put something that's a decking, but have like a climbing wall that they could actually go up over to get to the slide area, be a lot safer, but. I really feel like we should have some input from the board on what you really want to do there. And I do feel like that's a pressing one that we should do sooner rather than.
The ropes.
The rope.
Yeah.
We did conduct a survey. Jill Davis, I'll give her credit for taking initiative. She offered and surveyed the kids on what they'd like. She gave some options, but also, as you can see, a place to write their own ideas. You may notice the frequency with which tire swing appears on that list. The kids would really like a tire swing. It's been made clear to me that I also should tell you several years ago, the most number of injuries happened when there was a tire swing. That they would spin themselves until they got so dizzy they were gonna pass out, they would fall off it and hurt themselves. Exactly. Right. The frequency of nurse visits from the tire swing is a factor when you consider their desire to have one. And so I've done my diligence in passing that along. But you'll see it's definitely something they want. So. They had some other good ideas. Somebody with like an inside room, they can hang out like a lounge area, which actually could be cool for some kids if we had supervision in multiple areas, which is always the thing. More shade.
Air conditioning.
Air conditioning outside is a big ask, but more shade is probably realistic. Something for shade, I understand that.
And they do have those sails that they have.
Yes.
We know as in Florida, I was taking pictures of playgrounds and more. Just looking at the different sails that could be put up to give us some shade out there for that.
Yeah. There were a few requests for the track team to have facilities. I don't think we're gonna put a whole track facility in, but the walking path that you're talking about is a great first step towards movement with that. Basketball.
The kids have been asking for basketball.
Yeah, the actual basketball.
A usable basketball.
A usable.
Yes.
That's what the survey says.
Yes, there is, yes. Better basketball court with 2 hoops.
But what you gotta do though is where are you gonna put it? You gotta think about where are we going long term, not just stick something somewhere. And then it doesn't fit into your front plan of what we try to do.
Yeah. Right, I don't think we have not that I'm aware of, I don't feel like we have a grand plan. What we're gonna do with, so, I don't know, I know what you're saying, because I agree, like, why put a whole lot of money into, a play structure and making it, for all ages, if we're gonna eventually divide the school into different locations or shared locations, so it really is I don't know where to start with that question.
Yeah, campus master plan.
Okay, well, what is
Yeah.
that?
It's a human
I
process.
guess it kind of comes down to two things that we need to consider right now, which is, I guess, what do you need, what are you looking from us for the immediate? Do you need, or you're just looking for our way in for the immediate items, or?
Well, I think that's the first thing we want to do is when
Right.
school's out, we want to go out there and tackle that
Mhm.
because we have people from away that come there. We want to make sure that no one's here. It's just gonna be safer for dealing with that one piece right now and then figure out what are we gonna do? We may gonna put a telephone pole up with better security. But getting rid of that rope that keeps breaking and ongoing safety issue.
And we don't have a climbing wall out there? I mean,
No, I mean, there's a big piece of rubber that they climb up.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of something that, you know, you can go up there.
Mhm.
It's usually the younger kids that are going out through there.
yeah, I mean,
I mean,
That
only the
means
younger
it's
kids though are
reasonable.
allowed on the play structure, right? Correct?
Kimmy, what'd you say?
Only the younger kids are allowed on the play structure, so that's,
Only the younger kids?
right, I know.
Oh, the older are allowed.
They are, okay. Just not on the
they don't
swings,
have anything to do.
or the oval.
The swings have to be every other.
Is that related to the injuries?
No.
It says children 5 to 12.
Huh.
On the,
Yeah, that's why I was saying that, because I screwed those plaques in there, I know what it said. So I was like, the big kids don't go on that, do they? So I guess but just to bring us back to what we're talking about today, are we talking about the money that we put in the budget for the middle school playground? Or are we talking about for middle school enhancements, I should say, additions? Because that's what we put money in the budget for, and then also didn't we put money to fix the
Yes.
current? So which one, are we talking about the middle school addition today, or are we talking about, or just both?
I think right now, by looking at the monies that we have right now, we can come up with the material and do it in-house. The fix that we need to do immediately right now. Then you have the $20,000 that was put in there for handicap / whatever we gotta do moving forward as a board. And I think that there is some money in there in the ground right now. We've been looking at trying to, what can we get done with monies that we have available right now to finish up. We can get the money this year to go ahead and take care of our immediate needs. But I guess what I'm saying is moving forward, we need to have more input of actually what are we gonna do?
I do think we really need to prioritize still giving the middle schoolers something to do, because not to tie everything back to bullying, but what do you expect them to do? If they don't have anything to do, like, is the thing. So I do think is one of the things that we're identifying as a reoccurring theme. If they don't have anything good to do out there, it's kind of hard to expect them to behave. You know what I mean? They don't have another, so much opportunity to not behave if you have nothing else to do. I guess and again, not to bring everything back to bullying, but I do think we talked about that extensively, about wanting to make sure we did an enhancement, but not wanting to commit exactly this is what I'm recalling, and maybe I'm wrong, because it was a while ago. But not wanting to commit specifically to what on the playground we wanted to do without hearing from the kids, because we didn't want to say, hey, we want to do basketball hoops, and that's not what they want. It turns out we were right. We did a good job predicting what they wanted, but still, I think that's.
I think probably the best way to move this forward would be to create an ad hoc committee to get some stakeholders involved.
I don't even think you need an ad hoc committee, just run it through facilities.
Yeah.
Oh, how fabulous. I have an idea of who should run that.
Yeah, we can do that, and maybe Meredith, do you want to kind of spearhead that sort of
For the middle school or?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Kind of a middle school.
Playground focus.
playground focus, like ad hoc.
Yeah, and we can just kind of report out through the facilities committee and.
Yep.
Probably, ideally, basically have, a group of the folks who would want to weigh in and
Yeah.
Gonna work on this.
I know one right there.
Perfect.
First
All right,
member.
yeah.
Natalie?
Yeah.
Natalie's usually.
And Natalie.
Yeah.
Awesome. Oh, good. Okay.
It's all coming together.
Yeah.
It all came out of the campus committee.
Right, right.
And so for. I don't,
I don't think we want to wait for the meetings. I think have a more, like, go ahead and start
yeah,
having a group, talk about it, plan it, figure it out, meet here whenever
Okay.
you want. We're open. And school's letting out, but we're open. I work year round, Mark works year round.
Okay.
You know, we're here. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, and it sounds like using funding, you're talking about within this budget, like in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, this.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
there's some opportunity,
There's
to do whatever,
some that we
whatever
need to
you
do
can
right
to
away. Yeah.
maintain and fix stuff up, yeah. And I think that the walking trail, seems to align with the survey as well, so, yeah.
Now work on numbers. Perfect. When the looking, see what we can do.
I think that's great. And I think the great time, again, like a community day, even just like a series of community days during the summer. I mean, if it's 5 people that show up, whatever, if it's like 20 people that show up, right? Like, let's just, like, kind of just do it attitude.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. That was
Great. Thank you.
Back to the campus planning side of the conversation, and not to derail us, and I apologize in advance for even saying this.
oh,
When we look at the campus footprint and we see an abutting property up for sale.
Yeah.
Right now, I just,
Facilities did talk about that, so you're not out of.
okay, I just want to start a conversation, like, as we have a conversation.
You're not, absolutely, and I did, not mention that, we have been. That is on our radar, we are trying to. Understand. What an appropriate use for that property would be. How it can be best presented to public to defend such a ask. So absolutely, it has not gone unnoticed, so.
Appreciate the foresight of the facilities.
And has there been any conversation of what you might consider a bargain sale? Where the seller sells it to us at a reduced price and gets tax
Gets a tax
That-
benefit.
That did come up, Stephen Huffnagel from Coastal Rivers, you may or may not know him, emailed us with some suggestions as, you know, someone familiar with
Yeah.
acquiring property.
Very
So,
true.
right, so we did have that conversation as part of our meeting as well, and figuring out if the property is viable for us, and then approaching the owner about possibilities or considerations. And then figuring out community support, if we can get that.
All right.
Thank
Great.
Thank you, Martin.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for this great picture. Can we take it home? There's a sounds like maybe that was Tammy. Raise. That's definitely, all right, moving on, seeking a motion to authorize sale of a bus equipment and materials replaced by upgrades.
Right, that should say sale or disposal.
Sale
Yeah.
or disposal of a
Well, it
bus.
says, yeah, in accordance with
Equipment and materials replaced by upgrades in accordance with policy DN, school properties disposition.
So moved.
Sam,
Second.
Betsy,
Right now, we do have a bus and several very older than me library books that we're, that we're putting out. And then, of course, during the summer, we acquire more things from classrooms that are ready to go. So we will follow the policy you allow us to.
and this leaves us with still one spare bus plus the second, plus the next one will be getting, which will remain the same amount of numbers, just moving along.
Is the second bus still
August.
August?
Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions? What, show of hands, all in favor? Yes. Right, Amy has successfully ducked her short-term response.
So Mark, you let Amy in, she's locked out.
Oh, it's after 8 o'clock. Exactly.
We're locked in.
Get the key, right?
Oh, wait. Doors are locked. Forgetting.
Okay.
All right, this brings us to the strategic planning committee, discussion. Amy, I'll just let you have the floor if you'd like.
Wanna just give me an update?
Yeah, I mean, you had kind of discussed,
Yeah.
the desire to keep this
Yes.
in,
item.
you know, an item that we discuss, kind of evaluate. And, maybe would be an appropriate time to float ideas that might get put into, larger board goals for next year. I think
Yeah.
would be-
So I think, the committee has not met yet, but we will meet in the, at the beginning of the school year. So that we can include our new principals. That's important. And, I think, our goal for next year will be to look at anything, as just to bring us back to a refresher. We've been talking about making a strategic plan for a very long time. And you can keep talking about it and talking about it and talking about it and being afraid to put something out there that is maybe not in the final draft, or we can put something out there that we know might need to be evaluated and tweaked, because that's what you're supposed to actually do with strategic plans, is evaluate them and tweak them as each year. So we did that last year. I know that Kim did make some efforts to give us updates on action planning during support points in her principal's report. And I think next year going forward, that'd be nice to do a little bit more of that every meeting. So more kind of monthly updates. But our plan will be, again, to open up to new members. So it's a good time to say it. Anybody that was interested when we were we did have people come to us when we were mid our work with our consultant. And her process was to, once everybody was onboarded, shall we say, to the process, not let new people in. So we had some people that wanted to join. So this will be a time where we will take new members starting in September. And even though this is a board committee, members of strategic planning can be from the community, from parents, staff. They do not have to be board members. And we will evaluate if we want to make any changes. And then I think talk a little bit more about action planning. Now, action planning is not our job as board, it's your job.
I think mine,
Your job.
and your job. Yeah, I work with.
Yes.
So my question is, this is a huge list of things. Have we
You think
talked?
this is a huge.
No,
list of
but have
things.
we?
Did you see the last?
But have we talked about sort of timelines, which happen in next year, which happens 2 years from now, so that we're not trying to do everything at once?
Good point, staging and prioritization.
Yeah, and I just think that would seem like a reasonable thing to do with.
So if we, at the August meeting, set the board goals and tie them into which of these, that would be priority one. And then we could stagger some as 2 or 3 for the next couple.
Right, I mean, we can't do every one of these bulleted issues every year thoroughly or in depth. I mean, that's crazy. So, yeah.
I think there are a couple on here that I see that
We made progress
align
on.
pretty well with the direction kind of we're heading from our evaluation as well, parent community engagement, obviously the foreign language is working.
Physical parents and creative campus.
Yeah, so, yeah. Right, culture.
But there are things that
Yeah.
outdoor and experiential education, for instance, is that something I want to take on next year or in 2 years?
No, but we did just hire a principal
Yeah.
with some really good experience.
We're kind of along as
Sorry,
well.
but that's fine.
Over time, yeah.
So, great.
And then
Well-
just remind me, the we in this strategic priorities is, who's the we? The collective we, the board, or the principal, the school,
Well, we as the whole community, but
Yeah.
again, action
Yeah.
planning is not.
yeah. Right, yeah. So yeah, I think it's good that this, for this to be.
And
brought
again, this
to our-
just comes from, remember, like surveys, it comes from student feedback, staff feedback,
Jam board.
looking at the, yes, jam boards. To identify what are the priorities, what are our current priorities? The next step would be, I think, to make more specific SMART goals for some of these items. My operational excellence, yellow belts there showing through, my people would be proud of her.
All right.
So meeting to come in September.
Perfect. All right. So as I mentioned, Lindsay and I thought that it made more sense to have the officers and committee assignments decided at this meeting so that going through the summer break, we can kind of hit the ground running in August. Everything will be sorted moving into that office or that meeting.
Speaking of August, I nominate August Arvintaggi, school board chair.
Second.
So I actually dug into this process and discovered that it's not motion seconds and votes on everybody. What happens is all nominations are taken on the floor. So August or anybody else, and then we take a vote and you each vote for the one person you want of the nominated accepted people. In absentia, David Ogier told me today he also nominates you. Do that. for not being here.
It's a thought.
But yeah, so we'll take nominations and.
I'll nominate August.
This is gonna be a quick vote.
Any other nominations? Okay, nominations are closed. Take a vote. I'll do this part since you're not doing it. We vote on our nomination of August for school board chair again.
Well,
Abstaining?
I abstain, yes.
Okay.
Do you
Do you
accept?
accept?
I do accept, yes. Thank you all for your vote of confidence. And things went this past year.
Great.
It has been a pleasure working with you all. All right, moving on to the nomination and election of the school board vice chair.
Betsy is right now.
I am right now. Is anyone interested in?
I nominate Betsy.
No, I don't.
Seriously. I would take a moment to just say, while I appreciate Betsy's willingness to do this, vice chair is also an opportunity for succession planning within the
Right.
board, which is a critical component of long-term board planning and boardsmanship. So if anyone is interested in playing the role of chair in the future, I know Betsy, you expressed some.
I did, and I still feel that way, that I don't feel like chair is my goal. Yeah, so I'm happy to be vice chair.
I see
Chair is-
great
Yeah,
opportunities and skills around leadership sitting at this table. And would love to,
for when I went.
You have,
love to explore kind of developing that skill set and that future leadership within the board.
I would nominate Krista. Is that something, Krista, is that something that you would have time for interest?
I'd be interested. I've got a
Then I
coming into
nominate
pre-K and I'm
Okay.
another one a few years later. I guess I'll be around.
Thank you, I nominate Krista, if it's okay with you too.
Well, and then we can.
Me too.
Policy.
Any other nominations for other? Let's do a vote. Nominations are closed. A vote for Krista. All in favor? And, do we need to
Are
do?
you abstaining or voting for Betsy?
Voting for Betsy.
But thank you. I feel like I'm kind of hard out for time to.
Congratulations,
Yeah, do some
Krista.
more
And Betsy,
training.
thank you for your,
Yes,
Thank you,
and thank you for knowing
what you want to do and what you don't want to do.
Yeah.
That's really important.
I am great, I was glad to be on it this year and it's been lovely to work with August, but I know that. But yeah, I think we should nominate Betsy as the official interview committee. Or maybe we're not gonna need that much anymore.
Like a second.
But thank you for your service with all. Yeah, of course, it's been.
All right, nomination and election of school board treasurer.
Currently Amy.
Currently Amy.
I nominate Amy.
Amy's still willing and
I nominate-
ready not to not change the
Thank you.
paperwork.
Yeah.
Thank-
Yeah. Any other nominations? Right, all in favor of a vote for Amy?
I vote for myself.
All right.
Thank you guys all.
Confidence.
You should all vote for yourself.
I agree.
Okay, that concludes the off-fields. Thank you all.
Oh, yeah, I didn't see that. Sorry, never mind.
So, committee assignment. There has been no turnover in the board.
Right now, we have a person from each town. on each board, which is nice, and I think we have three, four nice functioning subcommittees right now with interests that line up with people.
I guess the question is, anyone want to do different committee assignments? Is anyone against keeping them as they are? Perfect. They will stay as they are. All right, yeah, that's great.
I forget, whether I was on strategic planning, but I might have stepped back, but I'd rejoin that if I wasn't.
Right.
I just can't remember.
You were.
You had a note, wasn't really, I was.
Yeah, you had a baby.
Do we need to vote for those assignments?
No, those have generally been appointments.
Yeah.
No, we have to vote for them, remember?
We do.
I remember there's the policy that we put in place.
No, you're right.
I remember Jesse and I regretting that.
Mhm. I actually remember that too, now that you say it.
I mean, it's fine, it's just,
Okay,
In
we can do a group vote
A
for.
motion to keep the policy
motion, yeah.
committee assignments the same as fiscal year 25.
Second.
26.
All right, any debate on the motion to keep the committee assignments as the same in next year as they are this year?
Mhm.
All right, all in favor? All right, this brings us to the final and definitely not least important moment of the night. Seeking a motion to bring policy JICK bullying into second read.
Amendment as noted earlier today for a language in the first line. Yeah, changing to individuals.
Right.
Oh,
Rather than to do that.
Community. Yes,
I think you said all individuals.
Look at all community members. Either would be fine with me though, I just think.
Community.
It's just not.
To provide the school community.
Everybody must be
Thank you.
school community members.
So,
The school board to provide.
Yes.
With all school
Community members.
with an equitable opportunity to children.
do I need to reword that? Okay.
I'm just reading it.
Was there a motion?
Move to approve
If
with
this is-
amendment.
with that amendment, and I was wondering whether we forgot to cross-reference or need to put under cross-reference JICKR. An R, I didn't,
We don't have an R yet.
we don't have an R yet. It
We
doesn't
don't have an
exist
R
yet,
yet.
but do we wanna put it, does it need to go as a cross-reference? If we're expecting to, or does that get added later? We definitely need an R for this policy. We know that we don't have one yet, but since we're adopting it once, should we just?
The September app, I'd be happy to put it on
It
there.
makes sense, so we don't have to bring it.
I can put in parentheses coming fall 2025 and then.
Yeah, I don't even think we need to have any
Okay.
explanation. It cross-references the policy. If the policy doesn't exist, then it is, like, it has to exist in this cross-reference. So it's a helpful reminder, not that we'll forget.
That's slated.
So with both amendments,
Yes.
and there was a second? Was
Yes.
there a second, Betsy? Great, thank you. All right. So, Betsy, do you want to go over the revisions, or we've all had a chance to look at this?
I'm happy to share. The really big one was that we took out like most of this, the second half or all of it, beyond the second page because it was procedure. It felt much more
Yeah.
procedural.
Yeah.
So if you read the main model policy, this is really consistent with the language, but as Betsy explained, it's more concise, it's better organized, but really consistent with the main model policy. We just felt that main model policy actually had a whole bunch of procedure that we just chopped off and will incorporate into our.
Right.
We made it as our draft, our policy
Yeah, yeah.
immediately.
We wanted to be sure that administration was in charge of that part of the policy, or at least contributing greatly to that part of the policy, the R.
Right. And I would just say, thank you to the community for bringing this to the board. And thank you to the policy committee for taking this up and really taking a deep, thoughtful, concerned look at what we have now. And as we discussed when we brought it into, first read about how this is a foundation upon which the administration will have the ability to implement procedures so that students feel safe in this environment. So, thank you.
I just wanted to add a special thanks to Ben Popkin, who spent just so much time and energy and heart into this policy, and he did a lot of research, of his own for a month before he even contacted us. And so he really was a huge, asset to this project. And so I'm very grateful to him for that.
Yeah, it's a great example of having a parent.
Yeah.
Augment.
Yeah.
Our work.
Yeah.
Be there, and we shouldn't forget that.
Especially their particular expertise being an asset to us.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think it's a good point that if we want community involvement, sometimes focusing on the things that the community sees. I think we've done a really good job, or you've done a really good job of, as a policy committee, bringing a lot of the policies that are just, kind of needed to be updated. And now that we've kind of established that, this might be a good spot for community engagement if we pull what are the policies that they see that need revision. Because, I was walking down the hall the other day and a bus driver told me we needed to redo the dress code policy or something, so if we're working on a policy that people are passionate about, there'd probably be more that would be involved.
Right.
Very good point.
Ben was incredible. He was.
Because I'm day student.
All right, any other discussion on the policy?
Any other discussion germane to the business item?
We're talking about policy. We're talking about policy.
All right, so we will put to a vote, all in favor? The policy is adopted. Without further objection, I will declare this meeting adjourned at 8:21.